Sports are filled with superstition, and racing is no exception. Though it's a cliche, the number 13 is still seen as bad luck. But for our hopefuls fighting for the title, it's going to be lucky number 13 this time around. Let's get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 13 Club Class, and you'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Brad Dalton. And behind the scenes is our director, Ramiro Cisneros. Also, we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA Concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Also, PCA is proud to announce that they are celebrating their 70th anniversary in 2025. Here's to many more decades with North America's largest Porsche enthusiast group. But this group is kicking off 2025 with some cool places. Brad, why don't we take a look at what our schedule is going to be like for this season?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we pull up the schedule here, we are, of course, at Daytona Road Course here on the 9th of January. And from here, the club class schedule will go to Algarve, the Grand Prix on the 23rd of January. And then from there, it's Mosport, aka Canadian Tire Motorsport Park on the 6th of February. From there, we're going to send it on to the UK and go to Silverstone on the 20th of February. From there, we're looking at Road America on the 6th of March, the Hungaroring on the 20th of March, and we're going to end it all in the Imola Grand Prix on the 3rd of April.
As for that Daytona race, let's give you a quick look at this track. If you're not familiar, it is definitely a staple in sports car racing, and it is only 3.5 miles. I say only, but still a decent distance. And it is, of course, the road course of the Daytona Oval. 12 turns to be going around this place. And as they get ready here in the qualifying, which we'll get to in a second. Big thing to know about this place is honestly the banking. We saw it last night. The cars use that banking quite a bit to use the slipstream to draft on one another and save fuel, and also make a little bit easier passes than you would often see at most road courses. So battles are going to stay tight. They're going to stay unpredictable. Everybody's going to have to be minding their P's and Q's in what is likely to be long trains around the circuit. So we mentioned that qualifying session getting underway. Don't have any laps on the board, but they get a maximum of 3 laps to count during this session, Brad. And we saw last time that there are many drivers that maybe messed up this part a little bit through the Le Mans chicane, and that could be decisive in their qualifying position.
Yeah, absolutely. The Le Mans chicane, probably the most difficult section of the track because, of course, you're coming off of the long NASCAR turn 1, turn 2, all the way down that long back stretch just to have to lock the car down into that turn 10, 11, send it around here through into the front stretch. And honestly, if it's not the Le Mans chicane that's going to get you, it's this run right here, deep into turn 1, because it's off camber, downhill braking, just straight off the speedway, down onto the infield, and you've got to really send it wide, bring it back in on the curb, and nail that right. Time and time and time again, we're going to see drivers that really struggle into turn 1, the Le Mans. Those are just the 2 big braking zones that you really see that these Porsches will just, they'll have a time with it. That's the simplest way to phrase it. They're going to have a time with it.
That's a good way to put it. Here we see James Martin. These are mostly drivers that are starting their flying lap now. The 10 minutes should be enough, although we had a few drivers that started a bit late last night and ran out of time and didn't complete their 3rd lap. So hopefully everybody did get out there by this stage. Since this is solo qualifying, they're not allowed to complete the hot laps. Once the clock hits 0, that is it, and they are done. Here's Ben Leung. In the meantime, in the 290 coming up onto the oval out of turn 6, another one of those critical corners here you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. The other big area, you have the big braking zones that you really have to nail here as we ride on board with Steve Komatz. You have to nail those braking zones into turn 1, into turn 10, but you need to nail the exit of turn 6 onto the speedway here. And because this sets up this entire long run down the back stretch. And if you mess that up, if you mess up the exit of the Le Mans chicane as well, that just compromises your run. You can see drivers that are in the front of a pack of 10 cars and they mess up the braking a little bit, and by the end of those long runs, they are all the way to the back of that 10-car train, because the draft is powerful here. I mean, we're essentially just combining everything that's fun about watching a Porsche GT car run around this track, but we're going to throw a little bit of long speedway things, and all of a sudden you're going to end up with NASCAR pack racing if you're not careful. It's just the blend of both worlds here at Daytona. It's so much fun. We watched J.R. Gregory here go through into the International Horseshoe, sends it around, good run, and you can see a lot of focus on his face there. He is very locked in and ready to go.
Yeah, he was all the way up to, I think, third briefly, but as more drivers have come across the line for that first lap, he's been shuffled down to seventh. His first one good enough for a 44.8. Nobody into the 43s yet, like we saw with the pros last night, with this, of course, being club. These are drivers that are just a little slower on average than that, but still, it's pretty tight in comparison to what we were seeing last night. Julian Velez as well into the infield section, and then exiting out of turn 6, trying to get down on that throttle as smoothly as possible here, just tracking out up into the high banking. And one thing I feel like, you know, the sim and TV just doesn't do this place justice, because you and I were both talking about getting to be here in person. Standing at that banking really gives you an idea of how big it is. It is tall.
I went here last year for the 24 hours of Rolex, and I will tell you right now, I was not prepared for how much walking and how big this track truly is. It was surreal just to see the actual size. And the sim, you know, you said it perfectly, the sim doesn't do it justice. It's not until you're in that infield, in that camping section, all the way against these fences, these concrete barriers that you can see on the infield, and you can actually look. One of the cool things with the Rolex 24, they let you walk on the track. I got to sign the start-finish line during the pre-race on the Saturday before the event, and when you're standing there, it is so steep on the front stretch in the tri-oval, let alone turns 1, 2, 3, 4 of NASCAR. The sheer size is so hard to comprehend.
Yeah, just something about being there in person kind of gives you that perspective of the scale, that while you might have kind of an idea just based on here in the sim, it doesn't do the justice that your eyes can do to it. Andy Jenks, by the way, currently the quickest after the second lap now for most of the drivers, a 44.2. And it's actually a 10th up on McKinney. So that's, I mean, for this series, that's a bit of a wider gap than what we're used to seeing. It does close up behind him, though, from Scott Bowers down to, my goodness, I'm scrolling down. Okay, all the way from 3rd to 23rd. There is nobody farther than a 10th of a second apart from one another. That's how tight it is.
Yeah. And if you want to make things a little bit crazier, the top 25 as it stands right now are separated by 1.02 seconds. So, and you can even expand that. The top 26, 1.09 seconds separating them right now. I mean, that is a significant amount of cars to be that close in time. This is one of those moments where you look at the competition and you just remember that these drivers are all very, very strong around this track.
Dirksen just popped himself up into 5th as we were watching Banciata take his latest lap. Didn't quite see where he wound up, though. So we're going to check in with Michael McKinney, who is in 2nd. Like I said, about a 10th off of Andy Jenks. Well, he's still a 10th off, but now he's in 3rd, because I just saw David Snelling pop up onto the front row.
Yeah, 2 minutes left to go here in qualifying. Drivers are continuing to change positions here. Through the Le Mans chicane goes Michael McKinney. That was a clean run through the chicane there. We'll see if that affords him any extra time to kind of close that gap there for that pole position on Andy Jenks. It's, again, he's just got to find a little over a 10th, but that can be so hard to find when you're pushing these cars to the absolute limit here. Out of turn 4, looking very good. All of the drivers are mostly finished with their laps here. Just a few drivers still settling things in. Across the line we go, and it looks like Michael McKinney will stick there in 3rd place.
He was within, it looks like, about 7/100ths of his best time during that one. Backed off in that second lap and then tried again on the third lap, but it wasn't meant to be. Let's see if anybody else still has a lap left in these minute 21 left. Peter Sigourney looks like he still has a lap to go. And I think that's it. Yeah, he's the only driver that has a lap available. Mark Foley here has already taken his 3, so he's done. 11th is the highest he's going to be out there. He's just getting some practice, and you're allowed to do that in solo qualifying. It's just your laps will not count past those 3. And now Sigourney's done as he runs it into the infield and maybe shows a bit of frustration that last lap was not going how he wanted. Chris Sherbert, another one that's also done with all of his laps. So 44 seconds left, but now we can kind of put our feet up and wait for that clock to tick down to get to the race in itself, which won't happen until after the warm-up, mind you. But drivers now get to try and figure out what strategy they want. And I'd say here, more than many other racetracks, Brad, strategy is such a huge part because of what kind of fuel saving this place offers.
Yeah, if you're not the lead driver, the fuel saving is amazing. You can just sit in the draft and you can honestly be half throttle and still be right in a big pack of cars. If you're the front car, sometimes it's better just to rotate it out and give it up. The big thing with Daytona and with these races to remember is it's not over till it's over. So just give it time, let it breathe, relax a little bit sometimes is the better decision. And let's be honest, we're telling race car drivers to relax. That's not a thing they're going to do.
No, certainly not. Andy Jenks is going to be pretty happy, though, because he's relaxed on the pole. And David Snelling is going to be behind him in second. And you've got Michael McKinney starting in third with a 9:17 of Scott Bowers starting from P4. Terrence Tong will begin from fifth. To his outside, it is Peter Sigourney, who we saw did not take his final lap to improve. Julian Velez will be seventh. Then it's Derek Dirksen in P8. John Gibson starts ninth today, with the top 10 being rounded out by Ken Eskridge. Finally, in 11th, we have Mark Foley, and James Martin will start from 12th. Brad?
Yeah, from there, we're going to go 13th place with J.R. Gregory. 14th place will be Steve Komatz in the number 210. From there, we got the 934 of Richard Woodruff. And then in P16, Mike Matson. 17th place will be Chris Sherburne. And then in P18, we're going to have Charlie Boyer. From there, we're going P19 with Peter Coomer. And in P20, Ben Lung. From there, P21, Mark Doran. And then P22, Jake Steinbrück. P23, Dale Green. And then coming out into 24th place is Robert Neville.
Patrick Adamczyk starts behind him in 25th. Gary Reese is going to be in the 26th position. After that, it's Jason Rodigan in 27th. Mark Rondeau, P28 for him. And Robert Lacroix will be 29th. Robert Cottle next to him, and all Robert 15th row there in 30th. And two more drivers, David Glenn starting 31st, and Paul Banquita here in the 32nd position. All drivers managed to set a time in qualifying, so that is good to see. I think we only had one driver that failed to set a time last night, but everybody managed to get out there and get a clean one in. Now, the question of whether it's representative is its own. We had, I think our biggest mover was 18 positions gained last night. So the bar has been set high for the biggest mover.
It absolutely has. But hey, you never know. It's always possible to see someone really get the car together, get things going, and really nail some laps through and move forward. And sometimes it's just survival. It's Daytona. And sometimes it's all about the skill, and sometimes it's just all about making it through. This is a track that you put 1 foot wrong and it bites back. You just need to be comfortable, but this is also a track that I like to say there's tracks, that go into the handbook of sim racing. And it's a track that you should be able to jump in any car at any time and pretty much be able to put a lap together. And I would argue that Daytona is the track that you should be able to get in any car at any time and put a lap together, regardless of what's going on. This road course is so iconic in sports car racing. You have to be comfortable with it. You should be able to drive it in your sleep.
Indeed. And seeing the Ferris wheel made me wonder, did you get a chance to go up in it?
I did not, actually.
Oh, It's worth it. I can tell you that, especially if you can get in at night. It's really beautiful. But yeah, highly recommend if you get a chance to go see a road race at Daytona, especially the 24. It's one of the ones that I often try to recommend people go to. Best bang for your buck, if you ask me. 24 hours of racing for not too bad a ticket prices, so it's a pretty darn good deal. But let's talk about, before we get to the racing itself, a couple big things have changed since last season. If you didn't watch last night, here's the big kind of bullet points. Stricter blue flag rules is one of the big ones. Once the gap is less than 1 second, the car receiving the blue flag must let the other car by within 3 corners. So they're going to be much more hard on that than they used to be, where it was only informational. And they will have the live stewards keeping track of that, and they can hand out penalties. Other thing is the automated penalties. There is no drive-through at 17 incidents now, only a disqualification at 25 incidents. And of course, perhaps the more obvious one to all of our Porsche fans watching, which I assume there are plenty with this being PCA, is they are not in the Cup car anymore. This season, they are racing the GT3R. So that is going to take maybe a bit of adapting for some drivers. I know it is quite popular for those that maybe aren't as good with the Cup car, so I'm sure there's a few happy folks glad to have a few more aero bits to help them out around here, Brad.
Yeah, the aero bits, you wouldn't think it's a big difference between the Cup and the GT3R, but I will tell you from experience, it is quite a noticeable difference at times. So especially here around Daytona, this GT3R car is going to be someone's best friend, someone's worst enemy, but nonetheless, it's going to be great to see how this season shapes up. It's, of course, it's number 13. It's Taylor Swift's favorite number. It's a number that I'm not as comfortable with, but some people are. But somebody, it's going to paint good luck at the end of the season. It's got to start somewhere.
I wouldn't have pegged you as a Swiftie.
But, I wouldn't necessarily say a Swiftie. It's just, it's one of those fun facts you keep in the back of your head.
Okay, gotcha. Well, it looks like they are lining up now and ready to go. And as you may have noticed, we are going to be racing into the night. Beautiful sunset that we're going to be having in these 2 weeks of racing for the opening event of season 13 here. And thankfully won't be too big of an issue for the drivers. Is the other unique thing about Daytona is that it's all lit up, even when it's road racing, when it gets to be nighttime. Infield a little bit darker, but it's not significantly so. So if anything, you get kind of the best of both worlds, Brad. It's cooler with the sun being down, but you don't lose the visibility as much.
Yeah, that is one of the nice things that iRacing has, is the lights are all the way on. I will tell you that in real life, the conditions, they turn the lights down to about 20% of their max power. And of course, you're looking at 20 degrees Celsius track conditions right now. It's Florida, it's Daytona. What do we expect? Mostly cloudy, 6 p.m. There's a 15-kilometer-an-hour wind there. It's a little bit humid. Again, Florida, you're only about 10 minutes from the beach here at Daytona Speedway. So this is going to be an interesting one to watch. The track conditions really favor the cars, and this short formation lap is going to be quick, and we're going to have some fun racing coming our way.
It's 68 Fahrenheit for the non-metric folks out there, and a little bit cooler than what we saw last night as well, interestingly, with slightly higher winds. So we'll see if that has any sort of effect. We should actually check and see which direction that wind is blowing, because that could make for either easier or more difficult drafting, depending on which direction it's blowing on these cars on some of these long straightaways. But for now, they just want to get this one going, and the Porsche pace car is about to release our pole sitter, Andy Jenks. He cannot go whenever he pleases. He must wait for the call from Barney the Flagman up on the stand. And once that call is given, everybody can get on the loud pedal, and it's a rush down into turn one. There goes the pace car. 29 waiting patiently. Shouldn't have to wait too long. And there it is. Green flag is out. He gets a pretty good jump. Snelling is not able to match him. Might have a battle for third back there. Down to the inside, looking 3 wide. Bowers actually gets tipped. Is he going to come across the field? He tries to stay out of the way. At least one driver has to move off to the outside. Everybody checks up. Good job for the field to prevent that from becoming a worse incident. But Snelling falls down the order, and Scott Bowers does as well. No, excuse me, McKinney, not Snelling.
That was a big moment into turn one. I said turn one was the challenge. I said survival is the name of the game, and I wasn't lying here. 3 wide we go near the back of the field here through the International Horseshoe, and now we run down the dog leg towards the West Horseshoe. Little kink through on the side, and we follow along here with the 222 of Peter Sigourney, who is looking nice and comfortable with Terrence Tong there in the Roxy livery just behind as they come out. They're going to run towards turn 6, 7, and this is going to start the speedway section. This is where the drafting comes in. This is where being comfortable comes in, and this is where you're going to look for slipstream. You'll see some drivers go high on the banking, some stay low on the banking. It just depends, and here's the replay of the race start.
Yeah, there was a little bit of contact between the two of them. I think it was McKinney that may have actually made that contact as well. I'm not entirely sure, but both of them down around 18 places. It could have been a lot worse, so that's a positive, but that's going to be little comfort to them considering how much they lost. I'm just, like I said, I'm impressed, Brad, that they didn't have a major incident as we got at least one car. It looks like David Snelling cutting through the bus stop, and that's severe damage, I think, on the nose.
Yeah, David Snelling has clearly had a big moment there through the Le Mans chicane, and we'll see if we can find out what that is here momentarily. But that, for David Snelling, is going to just spell absolute disaster for this race. Jumping back up front here, believe it or not, we're only 2 minutes into this 60-minute race as we come back up. Turn one yet again. Again, it's that inside left-hand braking. You're turning and braking and trying to balance the car all at the same time. Come through the quick chute here into the International Horseshoe, and this is where it's really all about driving ahead. I wouldn't look in the mirrors. I wouldn't drive behind me. I'd be focusing on nailing the apex through this infield section. It looks like everybody's doing a good job of that here as we go towards the West Horseshoe.
So here's what happened to Snelling. Oh, he's probably going to get the wall, and he does extremely hard. I did see him come in and take his spare car, and that kind of explains why, because that must have done a real number on the suspension.
Honestly, I wonder that that car is still rolling after that. I mean, he's basically full speed, 100 and... I can't even think of what these Porsche cars are doing at the end of the straight there. It's
probably close to 150, 160.
I was going to say, it's about 160, I believe, down at the end as they go. But here's that draft coming into play. Julian Vela is coming through right on the back, going to look to the inside. Are we going to go side by side through the Le Mans chicane? Surely they're going to, somebody has to give, right? Nope, side by side they take it, and just ahead is going to come for Terrence Tong.
Yeah, Velez got checked up big time. You could see how much Gibson got up behind him here, and it was a very snazzy looking 911 car. I'm sure that is a very highly sought after number in this series. And coming around onto the tri-oval, is he going to maybe try and go by? Is he going to follow Velez back up to the Roxy machine, excuse me? And it looks like they're just going to stay behind for the time being. But Velez, I'm kind of surprised, if I'm honest, Brad. I wouldn't think they'd be making moves into the Le Mans chicane this early on.
I gotta wonder here as we get a replay of Marc Rondeau going through the International Horseshoe, getting a little bit loose there, and then that was some side-by-side action going through. I've got to wonder if it's maybe just get your runs early, get a little aggressive early on, and then maybe settle in. It's maybe a slightly different strategy compared to what we've been used to in these 60-minute races. You would think most people are going to say, you know what, we got 60 minutes, let's just take it nice and calm. Some drivers like to take the stance of stomp on the loud pedal early, get what I can, and then recoup through the middle, and then after you get your pit stop done here at the end of the race, stomp on the loud pedal again. Every driver has a different preference, and it seems like some are really taking that aggressive early approach.
I almost wonder if Julian sees Jenks, Sigourney both kind of running away up at the front, and he thinks, I got to get up to them. It's a 3-second gap. Maybe he feels like he's being held up at this stage. And we have our first black flag in the club class, Scott Bowers, for the contact early on, unfortunately. So he's going to have to go and serve that one. We only had, I believe it was 4 penalties handed out by Race Control last night, which is impressively few for the very first round, with the most drivers typically showing up here early in the series, and with some new faces potentially causing some issues as everybody gets used to one another. But here we go again, Brad. Velez going to try around the outside of turn one.
And as we go into turn one, look at this, the 911 of John Gibson getting a little feisty there. We're going to get 3 wide into turn one. They're going to think about it going down through, and it is going to be Velez who just gets ahead there. But on the inside is Terrence Tong. That's the preferred line. Velez runs a little bit wide there. John Gibson is going to slide through. Watch out for Derek Derrickson going in the background as well. This is how quickly these battles can change. You can go from a moment of I'm nice and comfortable ahead, and then all of a sudden you're just getting absolutely swarmed through, dropping multiple places, and you just can't seem to gather it back up. Side by side through the dog leg. Here we go, and hold on to it. This is not an ideal place to go side by side.
It is not. You could see that really cost Velez that failed attempt. Not only did he not get the position, but Gibson is now up into 4th. So if he was hoping and felt like he had more pace, it's actually hurting him worse to be fighting this hard. So maybe he does need to just sit down and kind of take the draft that he's getting from these cars and save some fuel from here, because now they're a full 4 seconds behind the 222 of Peter Sigourney. This group, by the way, goes back quite a ways. The first gap they've got, I think, might be Ken Eskridge down in 8th, but even then, it's not too far to the car behind them. You could even say this goes to Komats in 13th.
I'm looking through, and yeah, it goes at least to 13th. If not, even then, you get back 13th to 14th. They're separated by just a second. So you could even say that depending on how this goes, this battle could continue back further. And that is just how evenly matched this club class is. I mean, they are very with each other here. They're very aggressive running too, all the way down under the yellow line there for John Gibson, looking through. Terrence Tong having to defend. Derek Derrickson also looking for a move as well. Let's just go ahead and make this a crazy battle through, but Terrence Tong yet again not one to fare under pressure and is just fine there in 3rd place still. Gap closing very quickly to that 222.
Gibson still trying to make the repass on Dirksen, though, and he is going to be able to get through into 5th position. So a couple changes around in that, with Julian Velez being very aggressive down on the apron, which is allowed here on the road course to try and make the pass through the tri-oval. Interesting that he was trying to do it so early on the run into it. Now, the question is, can he finally get by on Terrence Tong, while behind them, Mark Foley getting quite interested in Dirksen. As we take a look at Gary Reese having an issue. He was given a penalty for this incident, unfortunately. So insult to injury for the 16 car.
Yeah, and again, that's one of those you just don't... You have those moments, and it's so hard to recover, but it's not impossible to recover from. You just got to put your head down and keep going and keep driving and just recover what you can. I think the one big thing with this is it's early in the season. It's round 1. We've got plenty of time here in the season to go, as we talked about all the way back at the top of the broadcast with the schedule. Plenty of time to go, and just keep it going here. Don't let a bad round 1 sort of set your tone, and you can always recover from it.
So Gary Reese, Chris Sherburne, and Scott Bowers, the 3 that have received penalties so far in this race. As we come back to the fights, and Velez did get by Tong. Did he just slipstream past him? I'm trying to check back and see if I can find out if that was the case. Yeah, actually, no, he outbraked him into the Le Mans chicane, it looks like. So again, aggressive fighting from the number 33. He does not take no for an answer. And to his credit, Brad, I mean, look at the gap that he's already pulling. So yeah, maybe it was pretty important that he get away, because it does look like he was being held up.
Yeah, and that's one of those things as a driver, you know your pace, you know what you're comfortable with in the race, and you know what you need to do to get forward. And it looks like in that moment, it was just a case of get away, get some breathing room, and just open up some clean air. And the one thing that is going to help here for Julian Velez and that number 33 is drivers behind battling. If everyone behind keeps battling, that just gives you a little bit more breathing room.
So here's your marker for reference. Jenks and Sigourney looks like they're running 45.2 to 45.4 on their laps, somewhere in that range. Velez, we won't know his real pace until this lap through, so we'll have to watch and see. Now that he's got the clear air, can he at least match their pace, or is he going to continue to lose them? Speaking of continuing to lose, poor Terrence Tong. Well, I thought he was going to lose out to Gibson, but it looks like Gibson may have gotten a slowdown penalty as he's off the racing line and falling backwards in a hurry.
Yeah, one of the things with the Le Mans chicane is it can come out and bite you, and really you have to be careful with track limits there, otherwise you are going to take a slowdown. Robert Cottle there with a little bit of a spin going out of turn 6, getting back onto the speedway, and that is going to severely compromise his run as we jump back here with P6 Mark Foley, who is just settling in, it looks like, holding on in the middle of a conga line of Porsches that are just continuing to make their way around this Daytona circuit.
So, to answer my question earlier about can Velez try and run them down, he just ran a 45 flat. So if Jenks and Segordi are watching their timing towers, they're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit. And to their credit, their best lap time is about 0.2 quicker than that 45 flat. So they theoretically could go a little bit faster and try to run away from Velez. But he is dead set on making this a three-way fight as we watch the battle for 4th on the top of your screen, as well as a nice battle for 16th being led by Charlie Boyer. Actually, battle for 15th, I should say, in this group at the bottom.
And as we watch these two separate battles go through, the one thing I will comment on that leader battle as we watch is I still think the leaders are pace managing. I think Andy Jenks and Peter Sigourney are pace managing here in the front. Back in the back, I don't think there's a lot of pace management. I think it's just there's a sea of cars, and it's hard to do a lot when there's a sea of cars ahead and behind here. But in 15th place, as you said, is Charlie Boyer, who is leading this line of cars through the Le Mans chicane yet again. Mind the track limits. I think I might have saw somebody off in the background if I wasn't mistaken.
I think that was Neville. Yeah, good catch on that one. It looks like he has had an issue because the timing is showing him falling down multiple places. And it looks like the nose may have come off that car as well, as he's missing a part of that front splitter. Everybody kind of going around him as he slowly gets back up to speed.
And as he comes back up to speed without a front bumper, that is definitely going to be a spare car to go through. Hopefully still having a spare car to save here. We go down into this on-track video, and yeah, there was
somebody off. Yeah, somebody had an issue. I think it was Peter Coomer, who was actually up 10. I was just noticing. That's the main reason I noticed is I saw his name start to go down just after I had noted how many positions he had gained early in this race. Finally, there you can start to see his car come into view. Indeed, it is that bright blue number 333 of Peter falls all the way to 27th. He went from gaining 10 in this race to now losing 8.
Yeah, that was a good catch there, as well as he tries to regroup it and get things going again. We jump back up front here with Terrence Tong in 4th place here, running through Derek Derrickson in 5th. And again, you got to stretch out a little bit here. Here's the replay of Robert Neville. Very similar to what we saw on lap 1, just a little too aggressive on the entry to the Le Mans chicane, and the rear tires just will not cooperate with it.
And to be fair to him, Brad, I can't count how many times I've done that into the Le Mans chicane and in many different cars at this track.
I'm going to be perfectly honest, the amount of times that I've cut the Le Mans chicane just because I didn't want to do that, there's a reason that I'm in the booth a bit more than I'm on the track.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, and slowing somebody up, too. Didn't quite make out who that was. But somebody was cost a few positions, but thankfully didn't have too much damage in the process. Coming back live, Dirksen versus Tong. This has been side by side in the first corner many times so far. Oh, but both of them drifting out wide, and that's going to mean that they carry it on all the way up into the International Horseshoe. Dirksen's got the inside. Here comes Mark Foley giving a think about trying to get involved in this. Deep on the brakes for Terrence Tong, but it's too deep, and now he's vulnerable. Foley says, "Thank you very much. I didn't think I was going to get one, but now I think I will."
Yeah, but watch out for Terrence Tong because he is right there. And I will tell you right now, Roxy is a Porsche that gets very hungry, very fast. But look behind them, Gibson and Eskridge going side by side through the West Horseshoe as they stand through. So they say, you know what, we saw what happened up front, and we just want to go ahead and get involved with that here as we come through. But Terrence Tong, very well, good exit here out of turn 6, getting onto the speedway. And now you just settle in the draft, you floor the throttle, you shift the gears, and you just let the slipstream do its magic. Kind of throw the fishing line and just start reeling your way forward towards the Le Mans chicane.
Yeah, Eskridge doing pretty decently up 2 as we take another look at another incident in turn 1. The 46, I think that was. Yeah, it looks like that's the 46 getting turned around and doing a good job getting out of the way, but that's a blind place to be, so he really has to wait for a good opening before he can go.
Yeah, when you're in a situation like that, it's just pull over, breathe for a second, gather yourself, and then just watch that timing tower for a gap, because it's going to be a minute. Again, with just how close this field is spread out. I'm looking through the timing tables as it stands, and the top 25 drivers are the top 24 drivers are separated by 30 seconds around this lap of a minute 45. So that is a very close pack in retrospect of things, especially when you consider we've got 44 minutes left to go in this race.
Yeah, we're a quarter of the way through already, and the field's still very closely put together. We got a little bit of a fight coming down to the International Horseshoe here. That looks like Matson versus Green. This is for 11th position. Matson will come out the victor on that one, using every inch of the exit all the way to the rumble strip.
Yeah, and you have to sometimes with that exit run wide and kind of conserve the momentum, but it is going to cost you a bit of a run here as we go through the West Horseshoe. You can see just the different lines that we're looking at. Everybody's doing something slightly different, and the end result is so consistent. It's so smooth. Everyone just knows what they're doing. And if this is a track that you're looking to learn, I'll tell you right now, just find anyone that can give you a tutorial on it, and you're going to learn a very quick way.
Yeah, there's some secrets for sure. And one thing that we don't want to be a secret is that Princess Cruises is the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA Concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. We continue to watch this front group. I tell you what, Foley has been having a great race. He's now up 6. He's been kind of picking them off one by one, and might have another here as he's been threatening Dirksen. Just couldn't get close enough down into turn 1 this time.
Yeah, I don't know how wide this Porsche GT3 car is, but Dirksen is doing an amazing job of keeping it just wide enough to keep Foley behind. Foley hasn't been able to really find a chance to put the nose in and go for a pass or an opportunity as we've watched. He's just been very rock solid this whole time, holding back Foley, holding back Tong, holding back Gibson, and they are just keeping this train very solid. The big problem for them is that the longer they sort of keep this train going, they keep things defensive, they're letting Velez get away, they're letting Sigourney get away, they're letting Jinx get away as they go through, and we're seeing that just through the field. You're getting these pockets of battles, like we look back here at this battle for 13th, and you've got the pocket there, and then they've got a little bit of a gap up to 12th place.
That's a good point. This is Boyer that we're still watching in this group. Doran in there, McKinney behind James Martin. So 4 drivers all vying for 13th position back here as they come up onto the banking once again. That battle for 4th still being led by Dirksen. So let's check in with these drivers a little bit more into the mid-pack. These positions still mean as much to every one of them as it does everybody else. But will they stay patient? Will they try and use the fuel-saving method like we saw many do last night? In fact, it made such a difference that we saw drivers save as much as 4 seconds in the pit stops to try and leapfrog other cars. So it can have a huge chunk of time on your race time.
It absolutely can. And that's one of those things I like to call the risk versus reward bias. What are you more comfortable doing? Are you more comfortable risking running hard and potentially running lower on fuel, but having that longer pit stop? Or are you more willing to really conserve the fuel, get that shorter pit stop, get some time back in the pit stop, and potentially jump your way forward? Every driver is going to have their preference. Some drivers are more comfortable just absolutely pushing these Porsche cars time and time again, lap after lap, consistently. And some drivers are really comfortable managing the pace. They're comfortable conserving out to a fuel number. They're comfortable hitting that mark. It's something that every driver has to decide. For me, it would just be about how many laps can I actually complete without an off track. And that's a bigger question that I still don't have a good answer to.
Not many, if it's me, honestly. But Terrence Tong, we kind of see glimpses of this battle happening between himself and Gibson. It seems like Terrence might be having some struggles. He made up some spots early with that spin that we had on lap 1, and he was leading this group for quite a few laps. Since he got overtaken by 1, he's just had driver after driver sneak by him, and Gibson is trying to add his name to that list as they head into the Le Mans chicane, looking for that exit. He was side by side briefly. Now, can he now do that again through NASCAR 3 and 4?
And as they come through 3 and 4, the one thing I did notice on the exit of 2 was that John Gibson slightly tapped the wall there on the outside line. So it's something you've got to watch. You've got to really be careful to not tap the speedway wall as you exit out of the speedway turn 2. But coming into the front stretch here, heading down towards turn 1, is he going to be brave on the brakes? Well, he's definitely thinking about it.
Oh!
That is too brave. They come together. No, that's a hard hit on the tire barrier.
Oh, absolute worst case scenario for Gibson, finding himself straight into the end of the pit wall, while poor Terrence Tong, and he has to take a tow. He hit too hard. He decides he can't drive it back around because he'd have to do the entire lap to get back to the pit lane. Both of their races ruined in the blink of an eye.
He wanted to go for that move. I think that was a case that the 911 knew he was faster there in that situation. John Gibson felt like he was the faster Porsche, and he wanted to go for the move, and it looked like in that case Terrence Tong just went a little defensive, and there was a misjudge of braking or something here.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, you called it, judging the braking wrong, just got into the back of them and ruined things for both of them. And I have a feeling that means that John might see a penalty coming. We'll see what race control thinks of that. It's a bit of a moot point, obviously. And just as I say that, John Gibson was black flagged, incident 2346 we're seeing on race control. So looks like they seem to agree that that was his fault. And if he can get back out, his race is not over, as they do have a spare car waiting for them. But he's so compromised, he's not even going to finish on the lead lap now.
Yeah, but sometimes you just need to finish. He needs to get back out there. I think in that case for Terrence Tong, he was really going for the defense. You could argue Terrence maybe should have seen that move coming, stayed a little wider. That's also a moot point. I mean, you're a driver, you're going to defend, you're going to run your racing line, and they're fighting for position. There's no need to facilitate a pass in that situation. If you're John Gibson, again, you can argue maybe a little more conservative with the pass attempt. Again, a moot point. He's passing for position. He's going to go for it. Unfortunately, that's a case of 2 into 1 just doesn't work. The brakes are a little, miscalculated for him, and it's unfortunate to see, but the good news is that spare car lets him get out here. So we just jump back and continue along, and I mean, that's going to give some breathing room, though, to those top 3.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, we saw that change for position on screen. That was Ken Eskridge. It looked like kind of lifting and letting J.R. Gregory by for the 6th position. Behind them, we switched over to Komats and Matson. There you can see the car of Gregory leading Eskridge. And, for some drivers, they could maybe claim that, racing isn't rocket science. Ken really can. He works at NASA. So when you see those NASA schemes on his car, that's why. He is a very, very smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would want to strap a rocket motor to a Porsche and run. Maybe an option. Could we get a Porsche in space, actually? Porsche moon race. We could arrange that, right? Does
yeah.
Is that something NASA could do? Could we government fund that?
There we go. iRacing, that's your next track you should add is the moon race track. But when they come around off the banking once again, I could see why Ken wasn't interested in fighting JR too hard. JR is definitely running away from him. As we check in with JR Gregory and trying to make out that's kind of a weird, looks like a painting he's got behind him there on the bottom, because it's the Porsche logo, but instead of the horse, it looks like it's a lion on there or something. I'm not sure what that's about.
I'm not sure either. I'd be curious to know what that is, actually. Might be something that we'll have to research and find out. So I'm sure it's something sentimental, something there, and there's a reason that is where it's at. I don't know off the top of my head either, to be honest, but I like that it's there, and it very much shows that the sim rig for JR Gregory is set up specifically to be JR Gregory's sim rig. It's not like a generic bought off the shelf. It's built in a way, and it's decorated in a way that it's specifically his, and it feels like home.
Yeah, exactly. I do like it. It's kind of a neat little addition. I was checking through my notes on him, and I don't see anything that really kind of gives that away. I did find out that JR Gregory is one of our fellow commentators, actually. So glad to see at least one of us able to get that out there and be fast, as well as being able to talk well on the mic. Someone needs to do that. Certainly not going to be me and Brad, that's for sure, as we follow them coming into that bus stop chicane once again. 3 cars all tightly packed together. Komats, Matson, Dale Green all fighting for 8th.
Yeah, bringing this 8th place fight around through Speedway 3 and 4. That very solid blue number 15 bringing things along, and just nice and comfortable in 9th place there. Mike Matson is as they go through, but you can see the power of the draft, and you can see what happens when you lose the draft as Dale Green is getting a little bit closer down the Speedway section. And surely I didn't see somebody peel off for the pits in the background. We are approaching half race distance, but I wouldn't think this early, right?
Yeah, this is a little early, but we did have drivers try that last night, and it actually worked out decently for some of them. It was Michael McKinney, and McKinney. Okay, so I think what we've got here is, remember, McKinney was one of those that spun early. I think it was that first lap incident as we watched the onboard for Lacroix, who's got a motion rig. This is cool. But to finish my point on McKinney, so I wonder if he's kind of caught around drivers who are slow near him anyway. So he's trying to do his own pace, is pitting early to kind of run on his own and feeling like maybe he could have a little bit extra speed. Yeah, watch this, a hydraulic rig. This is when you're getting very serious about sim racing.
Andy's in VR. Don't forget, he's in VR with this hydraulic rig on, and it does look like he's got belts on running that. I mean, that is a serious setup, and that is, dedication.
I mean, when you're going around the banking, you probably need those belts because the thing's going to tilt to the side on you, and you don't have the G-forces that the real world would keep you glued to your seat. But as we come back to Ken versus JR, through the back chicane once again and back on the banking. It's about half a second between them. He was starting to run away at first, but now JR is being held accountable by the 77.
He is indeed. And you can see the lion logo there on the side of JR Gregory's Porsche as well as we run through. So definitely showing a bit more of a ownership of that as we run through here on the front stretch. Again, down into turn 1, hard on the brakes we go. Mind the change from the banking down onto the infield. Keep it together, braking left-hand turn, and that's a smooth way to get through. Now we just continue along, and you can see there that the gaps are slightly ebbing and flowing here through the midpoint of the race. This is really where drivers are starting to decide if they want to conserve, if they want to push. They're cemented to that pit stop strategy at this point. They're not even settling in. They've kind of cemented themselves at this point to whatever they're going to do. So they have to make it work from here.
Back up to our leader. Haven't checked in with Andy in quite some time. Gap to Peter Sigourney has grown enough that he's broken the slipstream. It's now 1.7 seconds between them. So he's able to run on his own without having the threat of Peter trying to snipe him, at least as it sits right now. And I think that's the big thing in this race is if you're going to be up at the front and you're not able to fuel save. You got somebody behind you. You want to break that slipstream so that you can at least run on even terms with them, because otherwise they're just going to save fuel behind you.
Yeah, and I think the other thing with it too, though, is that Peter Sigourney isn't that far away at the same time. So if anything happens with Andy Jinks and he's not rock solid consistent the whole time, anything goes wrong here, it's a case that, you know, Peter Sigourney is right there, right on the mix, and is ready to cruise his way forward up into that lead. He's 1.3 seconds off through turn 1, and he's ready to just, you know, send it on forward a little bit further if he can.
And paying homage to the old American Le Mans Series Porsches from the early years of that series. Coming down into turn 1, the fight goes side by side briefly between Matson and Komats, but Matson again discovering how little grip there is on the outside of turn 1. He was almost under threat from Dale Green because of that, but he covers him off by the time they get to the International Horseshoe. And I don't know about you, Brad, but that was one of my favorite places to get by and watch, is get as close to that exit as possible, because it really is kind of amazing seeing how quickly the cars could accelerate off that hairpin.
It's surreal. The first time I saw the track through and actually was inside the track was at the International Horseshoe right there on the exit. That's the first photo, the first video of cars going around on Thursday practice that I got. It was, I walked in, came through the tunnel underneath turn 4, got in, and immediately was walking through. I passed the Porsche Cup cars, I walked past the Corvette cars, I walked through, saw all the team trailers, and I got kind of lost in the infield for a few minutes, and I started hearing cars running on practice. And the next thing I found, I was like, all right, I just need to find out where the track is. And I walked around, and it was just the exit of the International Horseshoe right there. And I was like, wow, this track is much bigger, and these cars are much faster off of this exit than I expected.
Yeah, even these GT3 class cars, they get going in a hurry. As Neville, currently one of our early drivers to have pitted about 2 laps ago, is back out in 27th, and the 4-screen setup. This is interesting. It has the extra monitor up above him. You can see he has what looks like to be either some streaming gear or maybe some telemetry going at the moment to kind of help him get some information throughout the race. But another nice little showing of our rig setup. Oh, we got another taker. 2 of them, James Martin and Mark Doran, have hit pit lane.
We're under 30 minutes now, so it is going to be time for drivers to start settling in on that pit stop. If it is going to be a case of half race distance and pit, this is the time to do it. Really, I think drivers should push it a little bit further, go for the longer first run, and then you can really just, full throttle the car through the second run and maybe split this about 40-20, if not 35-25. I personally think the strategy would be to run a longer first stint and be a little bit smoother, and then the second stint, don't worry about fuel and just flat to the end.
Yep, I think you're right, because you can't count on still having someone to draft on that last stint there to help you save the fuel. Eskridge and Gregory in the foreground there, close to one another, but so is Matson and Green, who we're focusing on right now, along with Komats still just in front of him. But Komats, he hasn't been able to run away, but at the same time, it's been more of that blue 15 of Mike Matson who's been on the rear guard, with Green just kind of hassling him every corner.
Absolutely. Green's going to continue to hassle him through lap after lap as well, as he looks for some sort of a pass, some sort of an opportunity here. As Eskridge and Gregory go, well, that's because Gregory's in the pits and he's pitting through, so that way he can go. And again, we're just going to keep cruising these cars around until this 26 minutes is over.
For this 26 minutes is over, we want to take another opportunity to mention we're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA Concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. As we were going through that read, I did see a couple other drivers stop into pit lane. Jared Gregory, Richard Woodruff, both having taken their stops now. We're missing about half the field that needs a pit stop. That said, it looks like a couple of those drivers did pit quite a few laps ago. David Glenn, it looks like Richard Woodruff did as well. Oh, interesting. So Woodruff is in right now, but I'm not seeing his update yet. So I wonder if we'll see that change shortly here. But in the meantime, we're now watching the battle once again between Dale Green and Mike Matson. Now they really are losing to Steve Komatz. He's stretched that up to nearly a second ahead of the 15 car.
Yeah, and as Steve Komatz continues to go through, he's trying to break that draft line there and just find more time as they go. And it looks like he's doing a fairly good job here to jump up. Julian Vela is now into the pits in that number 33. And this is going to be an interesting decision for me to see what he can do once he's out of the pits, gets the car together, and is he going to be able to make any headway on the leaders to finish things off? His lap times have been very consistent, very good. He's just got to find that little bit more in these final 24 minutes.
Yeah, it seemed like he was still missing some time. The closest I saw him get was about 3.7 seconds away. I don't know if he had creeped closer since I last looked. But I'm not too shocked that he has pitted earlier than some of those around him, because he was trying to play catch up. So I'm willing to bet as Robert Cottle. Oh, big cut, and thankfully keeps out of the wall initially. Ooh. Wow, I was going to say, don't take it back onto the racing line, buddy. He's very lucky that everybody behind was heads up, and it was only two cars catching up to him. But that could have been disastrous moments if he was in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, and what's worse about where he exited is, again, right on the racing line, right on the exit of the Le Mans chicane of the bus stop. I mean, it is such a close section there that drivers have to be heads up, and even then, sometimes being heads up just isn't enough, because you're very focused on hitting that entry, hitting that exit. You may not look ahead and see that. So very thankful that everybody was together and that he was able to keep that car out of the wall, keep things going. We jump here with the 718 in 12th place, or Robert LaCroix there, and then we have the number 47 as well. They are
the
running
leaders
through.
That's the leaders in. So this might be the end of the pit window, and they're almost all going at the same time. But Mark Foley has a black flag, I believe. Yeah, for pit entry, it looks like, because this is not coming from race control. So this looks like he got a speeding penalty, which is an automated penalty. He is going to suffer for that one after the race was going so well at the start. And our only driver to carry on for the next lap is Ken Eskridge for the moment.
Yeah, and as Ken Eskridge is just kind of solo running through, this is the case where I'd say at the end of this lap, this will be his end lap. And this is the point where you realize everyone around you is pit, and you need to just go. You need to go a bit faster than you have been, and really turn that car into a rocket ship. Let's get it a move on here and get to the pits as quick as possible.
So Ken obviously putting all those brains to good use and being able to do a great fuel strategy, going a lap longer than all the other runners around him. So that'll get him hopefully at least a little bit of time with a slightly shorter pit stop by the time he gets into pit lane. By the way, for those that have watched the series a bit and you've seen Lisa Eskridge, yes, that is Ken's wife, who also races. And I love this. She was so supportive of him, I found out. That's how she got into sim racing. She wanted to try and give it a try herself, which is very cool that they can kind of share that passion together.
You know, some families like to watch movies. Some families, like to watch football. And for some families, it's drive virtual cars around in circles. We're starting to see that more and more and see things go through as we see Ken Eskridge here into the pits, saving that full lap of fuel that he needed to. That's an amazing maneuver, and we'll see where he comes out. Something we haven't seen. I haven't seen any pit exit issues, and this is a fairly tricky pit exit, honestly, compared to some other tracks and most other tracks. So no pit exits there. Let's just see where Ken comes out.
Yeah, and you have to remember that it's a long ways before you get to the cone as well on that pit exit. They extended it, and it's not the two-phase version like they have in real life. It's the same pit speed all the way to the cone, so you're just kind of puttering around for a long time. Jenks takes the lead back from Ken Eskridge, as we expected. Okay, here's the critical thing. Velez has jumped up into P2. Who was in second before? I'm trying to remember.
If you hadn't asked me, I could have told you, but it wasn't Velez.
Yeah, my brain has skipped that for some reason, and I'm looking down the order to see if I could remind myself.
Yeah, no, I couldn't tell you. Let me dig in really quick.
Yeah, while you're looking at that. Myself. And see if we could dig that up. But it's definitely changed hands. It was not Velez, but he's 7 seconds behind Andy. Wow, Andy was about a second and a half faster thereabouts than Velez in the pit sequence. So not only is he quick, he's saved a lot more fuel than the 33 has, and he's sitting very pretty at the moment. Ken Eskridge moves up into fourth with that extra lap. Dirksen will move up into third. Dale Green in a fight here currently with J.R. Gregory now for the fifth position. Did you manage to... you found it, Brad.
Yeah, it was Peter Sigourney, who is now showing on my timing table is P30 and showing significantly down. So I don't know what happened to Sigourney, but he was the P2 driver before the pit stop cycles.
He's disconnected.
He was just a second off.
He's not in the sim anymore. This is strange. There must have had something happen that we couldn't see, either with an incident or maybe there was something in real life that he had to attend to and abandoned, which is a real shame. I mean, it was looking like a pretty easy second place for him, and it just wasn't meant to be. Let's see what happens here between Gregory and Green, because Komatz now has the front row seat. Interesting that he also dropped both those positions side by side through turn one, round the outside. Again, not many drivers able to make that work on the long way around to turn one. Gregory holds on to P5.
And Gregory with a good run there, and you can see him looking around, and Steve Komatz there looking around and really trying to find a way through. J.R. Gregory now looking behind him, I'm sure, here as Dale Green goes through, but everyone nice and smooth running through. Again, another driver with a 4-screen setup there, the 3 windows on the bottom and the 1 on the top center there, giving the extra telemetry, the extra information up top, just for that little bit of a competitive edge. It's the fun of trying to get every 10th, every 1000th of a second that you can out. But now we're starting to see cars really packed together, and look at this, 22 seconds off of the lead. J.R. Gregory leading Derek Derrickson, Dale Green, Steve Komatz, Mike Matson, Charlie Boyer, Patrick Abjik. You got plenty of cars there together that are going to be pushing each other here for the next 17 minutes.
Yeah, this goes down to 9th position, so JR is going to have his hands full. Can he withstand the pressure holding them off to the end? Or is he going to get sniped maybe? Because we haven't seen it yet, but last night there were plenty of drivers that used the slipstream here out of the bus stop to the finish line to try and get one more spot. In fact, our leader, our winner, almost lost it right at the end, but the car chasing him ran out of fuel coming to the line. That's how tightly they cut it on the fuel numbers last night. Will we see more of the same here, or is someone going to be able to steal the march over their rival?
I think that would be the goal in a perfect world, is to be right at the end of fuel there as you come over the line. Again, one of the fun things with sim racing is there's no post-race stewarding. There's no getting back around into the pits. There's no, you need to give a fuel sample at the end and have so much fuel in. It's a case of get over the line. So we'll see some drivers take some risk. You're going to have risk. You're going to have rewards. Something's got to work out somewhere. But in the end, in order to finish first you have to finish. That is the big motto of the day that I was always told when I started in the fun realm of sim racing. It's kind of the motto that you have to carry, and I think everyone knows it. Some people just don't like it as much as others.
Yeah, that's for sure. And this group, this is going to be fun without a doubt. Look at how tight they are together. And Derek Dirksen now the one under threat as he falls off the back of Gregory. Dale Green in behind him. As we're going to ride on board towards the tail of this train. This is with Mike Matson that we're watching off the roof right now. And a little bit of a pop to the high side from Dale Green. But this is going to put them side by side coming into the braking of the Le Mans chicane. And looks like Dale's going to decide to brake a little early. He knows it's too risky to try and go wheel to wheel through there right now.
Yeah, you've still got time left in this race. There's no sense of doing anything too risky, and especially because you get the better run off of the bus stop out of the Le Mans chicane. However you know it, you get a good bit better of a run through here, Speedway 3 and 4. You can just pass right back into turn 1. And that might be his motto here as we jump back a little bit further. This is Komatz and Matson side by side as they come through the front stretch here. And up front, it has been Dale Green, Derek Dirksen that have gone through side by side into turn 1. Where they stop, nobody knows, but it is going to be that number 210 of Steve Komatz that gets ahead of Mike Matson there into turn 1.
Yep, held him off once more. One last time, let's mention that Princess Cruises is the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 13, they provide exclusive offers, and that includes world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 16 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA Concierge team to hook up your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. All right. So looks like we might have a little bit of a split here unless Komatz can pick up the pace. He's losing touch with Dale Green up in front of him. It might go from a 6-car battle down to a pair of 3s.
Yeah, and this is really the buckle in time. This is the time where you've got to just be on your P's and Q's. You've got to have it together. We're down into that final run of time. This is where drivers are going to start just letting it all hang out. They're going to get a little more aggressive, a little more brave. They're going to make more risk here and really be going for it. But these pockets of cars, you can have a 3-car pocket, and if somebody in that pocket of cars gets a little too wild, you can take 3 cars, send it around, and then 3 cars can gather up 3 more, and well, you can end up with what we like to call the big one in NASCAR terms.
That's a good point. And while for Dirksen here, this is a pretty straightforward thing, or at least it should be, is he's going to go on the attack once more. Gregory braking very early in comparison. Can Dirksen get it down to the apex? No, he cannot get it down there in time, and he gets wheel spin off the corner. He'll be denied for now. But I was going to say, it's straightforward for someone like Dirksen, because he's second in line here. You can try to snipe him at the end as long as he stays second in this group. But let's say you go back down to guys like Matson at the back of this group. When is it go time for him, Brad? If you're in his shoes, when do you push to try and get towards the front of the group and start passing some cars?
I would go ahead and push it, but that is just me personally. Some drivers are going to wait until they know it's just a couple of laps to go. For me, I would want to go ahead and cement myself up in the front. I prefer to be the driver that is being chased than the one chasing. So I would go ahead and just stomp on the loud pedal, let it go, get ahead, and be comfortable. That is, again, that's just me though. Some drivers prefer to be the ones in the hunt. They prefer to be the one behind putting the pressure, and they know that they can apply pressure better than they can take pressure. So it's whatever the driver's comfortable with. I would go ahead and start making my moves.
All right, so let's see if he agrees with you, as unfortunately that bright blue car at the back kind of dropped off a little bit. Matson not anymore a part of this big train as much as he was before. Dirksen's got to watch out. Even though he's been attacking on Gregory, it seems like he's close to losing a position. And Mark Rondeau gets sent around. I wonder if that's related to Michael McKinney getting a black flag just recently.
I believe it is here as we jump back up here with Gregory and Dirksen side by side down the front stretch they go. And this is going to be a brave move into turn 1, but it does look like oh no, nobody's backing out of that one. Down in the bottom right corner, side by side, both cars wiggled because both thought the other was giving room, and that is Jason Brodigan that is just pulling the car over there to some marshals, and the car is now out of the race.
It's a shame to see. Also a shame for McKinney. It was looking like he was on a great recovery drive after being a part of that opening incident. And this black flag sends him way down to at least 18th. Looks like maybe even 19th, depending on when he's able to get back onto the track and up to speed. This has been a bit of a thrilling one down into turn one for this group here late in the race. Dirksen versus Gregory. Each time so far, Derek has been able to prevent a driver behind him. Whoa! And we had a parking lot for a brief moment on the middle of turn one, and cars trading some paint in the meantime. As somebody's off the boy, that was an action-packed corner for about 15 seconds there. That's a lot to parse.
Yeah, and there was still somebody off there in turn 1-2 just behind as they came through. I'm not sure what started that moment, but we can definitely see the end result. And it's what I said, 1 turns to 2, two turns to 6, and then all of a sudden you got a big pile up into turn 1, the most challenging corner of the track. But thankfully, it looks like everybody got that going there. So we jump in. We're under 10 minutes to go. This is really the case of, have you saved enough to push the car, or are you just driving with what you have left? I'll tell you right now, watching Derek Derrickson, he's getting real aggressive there on the bottom right-hand side. And you can see, David Glenn with a big hit. That's what started that.
Man, that's a little bit too far inside of the apex. And that was also, I think that was Richard Woodruff that we saw making some side-to-side contact. He was given a black flag. I'm not sure what that was about, because that was just, that looked like kind of inconsequential contact between himself and the car next to him, unless maybe he was involved with that car that wound up, that we were watching hitting the inside. Regardless, the 934 having to do a drive-through here and serve that. Oh, we're back to the battle between Green and Gregory. And coming out with Green ahead of Gregory this time. Komat's in behind them. Dirksen trying to run away. If I'm honest, I'm kind of surprised that wall is still there in real life racing as well. Because here in the sim, we don't have to worry about any sort of injury from that sort of stuff. But it's always kind of scared me the way it's so close to the racing line.
Well, and I will say in real life that I feel like the wall extends a bit further than where it's actually at in the sim. I feel like it's more around into turn 1, so that way that's not as much of a risk. And maybe I'm imagining that. I'd have to fact check myself, or somebody can fact check me somewhere, that wall for the pit exit actually comes all the way around.
I'm not sure if it's longer, but I know it doesn't go all the way up to the pit exit there. It's but yeah, they may have since extended it since this scan. We have to remember that this version, actually, well, it was somewhat rescanned, but I think it was mostly just for the oval, if I'm remembering correctly. So they might not have the new wall, because the latest was somewhere around 2021 or 2020 or somewhere around there. Anyways, as we get back to the racing on screen, Dirksen going defensive. Green trying to see if he can rattle that 4th place away from him, but he's not having any of it as the 505 gets a great exit off the International Horseshoe.
Yeah, it is a great exit there off of the Horseshoe for the 505. He's been looking like he's been losing rear tire grip here through the last few laps that we've been watching him. He seems like he's been a little wiggly on corner exit, and it's starting to show there. Dale Green closing the gap again just a little bit. J.R. Gregory not far behind. He's the lead train here in this battle for 4th place. 3rd place is taken off. 2nd and 1st have definitely taken off. 10th place, though, also under pressure. Charlie Boyer there down on the bottom of your picture-in-picture as we watch 10th, 11th, 12th, and even 13th and 14th there. Anything can happen. 6 minutes, 45 seconds left to go. Just about 3 laps and some change left to run here.
Remember when I said the 18 positions gained is going to be a high bar? Well, we got some high jumpers today. Dale Green up 18. Robert Lacroix up 18. Patrick Adamczyk up 16. 3 cars all within range to try and do better than what we saw last night. Again, I am stunned at how many drivers are managing to gain so many positions, and some of it may be down to a poor qualifying, but it's still, that's impressive what they've been able to do today as we continue to watch that battle for 4th. Could be 19 up for Dale Green if he can get by Dirksen, we see on the top screen. Meanwhile, on the bottom, a little farther down between Mark Doran and Lacroix. Lacroix might be up only 17 if Mark can go by him.
Yeah, and we'll see here, because it is possible that Mark will get past him as we go. We continue to watch here. Charlie Boyer, nice and comfortable there in P10 as it stands. Well, I say comfortable. Comfortable is probably relative. I might think he's comfortable. It is not. Here, Derek Derrickson up in P4, still trying to hold things along as he goes and continues through. Again, probably not as comfortable as he wants to be there in 4th place, but he is seeming like he's just doing what he needs to do, hitting his marks, keeping that car ahead. The big danger for him here for the final few laps is right here. It's the speedway section. He's got to watch the draft. He's got to mind the entry to Le Mans. He's got to mind the exit to Le Mans. That is the big key right now, and I think he will be okay for the next 5 minutes.
Gregory versus Komatz. Komatz got the run. Is he going to show himself down to the inside? Nope. In fact, we got a defense from JR instead down into the braking zone. So he'll keep him aside for the time being. Komatz going to bide his time, knowing that he's still got those 4 minutes. He could have opportunities. And Matson behind them is about 9/10 behind. So Matson not a problem for him right now. In fact, we're going to be riding on board with Komatz.
Yeah, and as we ride on board with Komatz, watch him here. He's thinking outside. He's thinking inside. He's going to look outside. Never mind. He's going to look inside here. Down the front stretch now, deep into the braking zone. Mind the cones to the inside. No!
Oh.
Contact into turn 1.
And not only does he send his rival off, he loses his spot to Mike Matson, who sneaks on by. J.R. Gregory does get going. But if I know the race control, they are probably going to be sending the black flag his direction here shortly. So unfortunate for Steve Komatz as well as for J.R. Gregory. Matson, though, he's probably grinning ear to ear. That's the 2 easiest positions he's ever had.
And you can see they're riding on board there with Komatz for that replay. It was just a case of going inside for a gap that realistically was going to close all day, but again, we're down into those final stages and you have to try to make those moves stick. So he had to go for it. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. Would have been amazing if it did.
Let's see. As we watch the battle for 4th, I can report with about 3 minutes to go. I think we're going to get 2 laps to go here for Andy Jenks up at the front. But let's stay here watching this fight between Dirksen and Green, who are pretty much on their own. I remember when this was a 6-car fight. Well, it's kind of narrowed down a little bit. And now it's mano a mano.
This is probably the way that you want this fight if you're either of these drivers. You don't want to have other people to worry about and defend. It just needs to be, I need to watch the guy behind or I need to attack the guy ahead and just keep these cars moving. Dirksen and Green here are just going to have to really pull the gloves off, get things going here. As we dive into turn 1 yet again, you see the different lines coming into turn 1, trying to really maximize the exit speed there for Dale Green. Derek's trying to defend there to the inside in the 505, coming through the little kink here into the International Horseshoe. Again, slightly different lines, looking for any sort of an edge they can find, and this is going to be a battle that goes all the way to the checkered flag.
It's certainly looking like it. The opportunities are starting to whittle away now that we're getting to the final laps of this race. At what point does Dale Green try to make his move? Does he have enough to make his move? Keeps getting close to him, coming up to the line. And if you could get by him, by the checkered flag, and just kind of slipstream around, then you could get him a spot. Komatz, to no surprise, is being given a black flag for that incident. So Steve, unfortunately, getting into the back of his rival is now going to pay for his sins.
And one thing I will tell you is race car drivers have very, very long memories. So I'll tell you right now, if you're J.R. Gregory, he's going to remember that from Steve Komatz going into future rounds. And tell you what, if it wasn't just anything more than a little bit of a fun rivalry before, there's definitely going to be some bad blood there.
Yeah, the good thing is PCA's usually a pretty well-behaved group, and while they might not be best of friends after that, usually stays pretty civil out there. Andy Jenks takes the white flag, 1 to go for the 29 car with 9 seconds down to Velez. So not looking like we'll have the heroics that we saw coming to the line in the pro class. Club is going to be a little bit more straightforward as long as Andy put enough fuel in it, which I guess is a bit of a question mark. There's Steve serving his penalty with a lap to go.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for Steve to have that penalty so close to the end here. Not anything he can do about it, though. It has to be served, and it's got to be served on the final lap. It's got to be served on the final lap. We jump back here. Dale Green and Dirksen still battling this out here. The gap just 0.2 of a second going through. This is the final chance for these two to sort out who's in fourth, who's in fifth. And as it stands right now, the 505, I don't know how wide a Porsche is. I said this earlier, but a Porsche needs to be about as wide as Daytona International Speedway going through.
Which is difficult because it's a decently wide track, honestly. But Andy Jenks, we're returning our cameras to him. He hasn't got a lot of screen time. Sometimes drivers prefer that, knowing that means they're leading and nothing is happening to them up at the front. So it's been quiet, it's been cool, calm, and collected for the 29 up to this stage. And as he comes out of the final corner, he is also going to be our first winner of Series 13 here in the club class. Congratulations to Andy Jenks.
Andy Jenks with a absolute dominant win here. Big kudos also has to go out to Julian Velez there in second place, 9 seconds back, which seems like a big gap, but when you consider that this is a 60-minute race, that 9-second gap, not too bad at all. This is the battle for fourth that we're going to watch. Third place just ahead, Kenneth Eskridge and Derek Dirksen. Dale Green, this is the final run to the line, looking for a slipstream, looking for a run, and it is going to be... It's Derek Dirksen just across the line ahead of Dale Green by less than a tenth.
So close, yet so far away. Unfortunately for Dale, it is not easy being green today, but we got a nice little fight as well between Dorian and Lacroix. Lacroix will finish 19 positions up, making him our hard charger of the race by 1 over Dale Green. If Dale had gotten that spot, he would have tied him for that. It doesn't mean anything. There's no prizes or points being awarded, but certainly a feather in your cap as the fireworks go off, as they often do here at Daytona at night during sports car races. The rest of the field coming in to wrap it up. 26 cars going to manage to finish on the lead lap, and at the top of them, it's Andy Jenks, your winner, with Julian Velez doing a fantastic job to come home P2, but I kind of wonder where he would have finished if he hadn't been held up early. We'll have to ask him if he has an idea of if he had the pace. Eskridge will get himself a nice third. I wouldn't call it a quiet third, but definitely didn't do anything too spectacular. Just kind of put himself the right place at the right time. Dirksen barely comes home with that fourth over Dale Green, who finished P5. Mike Matson was sixth today as Patrick Adamczyk finishes in P7. J.R. Gregory was eighth and Charlie Boyer ninth, with Robert Lacroix rounding out your top 10. Brad?
Yeah, from there we're going P11, Mark Doran, and then Ben Lung in 12th place, 42 seconds back. James Martin in P13 with David Snelling in 14th place. Michael McKinney snags the fastest lap on lap 34 and also brings it home in P15. From there we're going Steve Kamatz in P16, and then Mark Rondeau in P17. It's going to be Jake Steinbrink in P18, and then Paul Banchita in P19, and Mark Foley rounds out our top 20 here.
I have to start calling him Steve Son. In the meantime, Richard Woodruff in 21st, Robert Neville in 22nd. Then it's Peter Coomer, P23 today. Scott Bowers only 24th in the end after he had that penalty from the contact in the first lap. Chris Sherburne 25th, and Terrence Tong, last driver on the lead lap in 26th. Another one with a bit of a miserable day. Jason Brodigan, first one a lap down to 27th. Reese was 28th, and Peter Sigourney 29th, with David Glenn, a DNF, along with Cottle and Gibson unable to take the checkered flag for this one. So I believe it looks like we're talking to Andy Jenks up here first in the number 20 line. So let's pull Andy in and talk to him about how he felt this race went. Andy, you seem to be able to break the slipstream, and from there, it didn't look like you were phased at all. Was it pretty straightforward?
Yeah, Peter was real quick at the beginning, so I was driving hard to try to keep him out of draft. And then I don't know if he had network problems after a pit stop or something like that. And then from there on, it was just manage the gap.
Well, you did that extremely well, came away with a gap of 9 seconds by the end of the race. That's not always an easy feat here at Daytona. Do you feel like you'll have a better time at some of the less draft-heavy tracks, or is it still going to be a struggle to break away from what is a very closely packed field?
Yeah, this is always a close group for sure. Daytona is one of my better tracks, so I was happy to see it on the schedule this year. The next track is going to be new to me, so we'll see. But yeah, I think cars do get spread out a little bit here at Daytona, just with the banks and the bus stop, and kind of spreads everybody out.
And lastly, I'm curious: is it just me, or is your livery an homage to the old Petite Le Mans Porsche from the early Alms days?
It is. Yes, that is it.
Well, fantastic. It looks gorgeous, and I'd say you're represented well with speed today. Congratulations.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
There's Andy Jenks, our victor here today. He finished ahead of Julian Velez. I believe Brad has caught up to the driver of the number 33.
Indeed, Julian Velez here in second place, a driver that seemed to have a lot of pace through here around Daytona. Julian, tell me, how did Daytona treat you there in that number 33?
Yeah, it was certainly a little trip there. That lap one incident definitely gave me a little bit of space to breathe behind me, so it was just a matter of trying to keep up with the front runners and try to stay in touch with them. And yeah, I had to stay a little bit of aggressive in the beginning because I saw that we were losing them, and after I got past Terrence, it was a pretty boring race after that. Just try to stay clean, keep it a 0x race, and just race my race.
Yeah, and Julian, do you think you got held up there with those early battles through the first few minutes of the race? Do you think you had enough pace to really get up to the leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of messed up my qualifying per usual, and Daytona is one of my strongest tracks, I think, and I started 7th, and I just felt like I had pace over Terrence, but obviously he wasn't going to just let me by, so I had to find a way to get by him so I could actually try to stay in touch with 1 and 2 and those guys. And unfortunately, by the time I made that move, they were already gone, and I could not catch them.
Still a strong showing there to come out in second, and looking forward to the next round here at Portimao. What's your comfort with that? What are you looking forward to for the next round?
I've never been there, never seen it, so it's going to be a whole new track for me. I'm going to have to put in maybe an extra hour or 2 into that track for sure, but I'm looking forward to a new track and hopefully keeping it clean once again and staying up top.
Oh, you're going to love Portimao, Julian. So we'll let you take it easy here. Congrats on the second place, and we'll catch you here next round.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you. And Joe, have you caught up to the third place driver here?
Indeed, I have. I've got Ken Eskridge with us, and Ken, I kind of joked around that for other drivers, racing isn't rocket science, but it really isn't rocket science for you. Would you call this an easy third place, or did you have to work for it?
Oh man, you have no idea. I am so happy about this. I've been doing this since season 5. This is only my second podium and my first race in club this season. And oh man, I'll tell you what, the hard work pays off.
It did indeed. A podium in the club class, definitely something to be proud of. What's crazy though is that a gain of 7 at the top end, that's pretty hard to do, and yet you had drivers who were up 18 and 19 positions behind you. We saw a lot of that yesterday. Do you think it's just the fact that it's a draft track that's allowing so many drivers to gain so many spots? That kind of surprised me, if I'm honest.
Oh yeah, that's and I have to thank my team, Masser, because we talked about it a lot, and they So told me how the draft was important. So J.R. Gregory was with me for most of the race, and he looked like he wanted to pass me, so I let him go by so I can do some fuel saving, and it paid off because I jumped some people in the pits. So I'm happy about that it worked out.
We've got Lisa racing a little bit later. Do you have any tips to help her find some speed as well?
Oh, you know what? I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. I was really sad that I got promoted to club, and she was there saying, "Oh, you'll do fine. You'll do fine. Don't worry about it." We both work hard, so it'll pay off for her too. Just keep plugging away.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what kind of speed she has when she gets on the track. Congratulations again on a well-earned third place.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Ken Eskridge coming home P3 today in the club class. And as we mentioned, we are coming back for Algarve on the Grand Prix track, Grand Prix layout of the track there on January 22nd for the next round. But that is not the next race coming up here in PCA, because you'll want to join us Wednesday night next week, January 15th, for the sport class here at Daytona once again. A big thank you goes out to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as to our team tonight, Ramiro and Brad. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak, and until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.